Any kind of lights. Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm gonna start at 6 o'clock. Got some formalities to take place first. I'm glad everybody saved me a seat because it's pretty crowded in here right now. Crowded as I can ever remember. So call the meeting to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag of the United States of America.
Which it stands.
Nancy, would you take the roll?
Ellen. Here. Bailey,
Here.
Book. Considine,
Present.
Barster,
Here.
Horseman,
Here.
Hudson,
Here.
Humphrey,
Here.
Kitson,
Present.
Copane,
Present.
McLean,
Here.
Minimi,
Here.
Naylor, present, Nicholson,
Here.
Norberg,
Here.
Palin,
Here.
Sheline, Shippert,
Here.
Scrogstad,
Here.
White, here, Williams,
Present.
Wilson,
Here.
Seaman,
Here.
Olson.
Hey, want to remind everybody to mute or turn off your cell phone, please. First thing we're going to do is honor a longtime employee, like Rick McCullough, to come forward. I'm Rick McCullough for about 30 years, worked for the county for 25 years. So I want to first give him a plaque. Reads Rick McCullough appreciation for 25 years of dedicated service, commitment to the Lee County Maintenance Department. November 4th, 96, day of November 4th, 2021. I really want to thank him for that. Thanks again, Rick. Yep. Thank you. Everybody had a chance to read the minutes from last month? Okay, any corrections or additions? Not, then they'll stand approved as read. First thing we have is a resolution of Joseph Meyer tax auction. Need a motion to approve that. Norberg, got a second? Ms. Shippert, the roll call vote.
Horseman,
Yes.
Hudson, Humphrey,
Yes.
Kitson,
Yes.
Copane,
Yes.
McLean, Minimi,
Yes.
Naylor,
yes,
Norberg,
Yes.
Palin,
Yes.
Shippert,
Yes.
Scroggstead,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Valley,
Yes.
Considine,
Yes.
Barster,
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes. The petition's coming to the zoning board of appeals, petition 21P 1585, petitioners Jared Zollhofer. The PIN numbers there in your minutes are on the agenda in May Township. Petitioners requesting a special use for a planned unit development. Need a motion to send this to the zoning board. So moved. Mr. Considine, got a second? Mr. Kitson? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Second thing, petitions coming from the zoning board of appeals. Petition 21P 1566. Petitioner South Dixon Solar LLC, PIN numbers are multiple and locating South Dixon Township. Petitioners requesting special use zoning for a solar farm. Need a motion to approve. Mr. Kitson, second by Mr. Copine. Gonna have a roll call vote on that.
Can we have discussion, Vice Chair?
Yeah.
Vice Chair. On that motion, I'd like to add, on that motion, there are following exceptions,
Okay, sorry about that.
if I may.
Yeah.
Lee County ZBA is asking that prior to the issuance of any building permit, the applicant shall submit a financial guarantee in the form of letter of credit, cash deposit, or bond in favor of Lee County equal to 125% of the cost to establish a vegetation ground cover. The financial guarantee shall remain in effect until the vegetation is 90% or more established. Number two, Lee County ZBA is asking that during construction of the SES construction, activity should commence no earlier than 7 a.m. Should be discontinued no longer than 8 p.m. on Monday through Saturday with a quarter mile of non-participating residents. Number three, and finally, the Lee County ZBA recommends that the special use permit be for a period of 35 years. If approved by the Lee County Board, the 35-year period should begin as of the date of approval by the Lee County Board. The SES shall be fully decommissioned, consistent with all terms and conditions of decommissioning plan at the end of said 35-year period.
You're amending that motion. Okay. And the second, Mr. Copine, same. You would ask for some discussion, Mr. Horstman?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'd like to thank the zoning administrator for recently confirming that the LISA score on this project is 192.3, not 81, as the ZBA found. But I disagree with their conclusion that that variance in the scores isn't important. Our ordinances say otherwise. I have three brief points. First, our ordinance 10-15-20, paragraph M, states that the LISA scoring system is, quote, the primary method for determining the location of rural development. I think it denies the ordinance to say that a 111-point divergence on the 300-point LISA scale is of no importance. It's more than a third of the entire scale. Second point, the zoning administrator has told the board that traditionally land with LISA scores below 225 are considered buildable. That's not how the LISA system works. We operate on laws, not traditions. Our ordinance 11-5-1, we adopted the LISA standards of the Illinois Department of Agriculture. And under the state LISA system, all land scored below 225 is not presumed to be buildable. The state LISA system has three different tiers. Top tier is for properties with scores of 225 or above. That's the best land, entitled to the highest protection, presumed to be non-buildable. At the other end of the spectrum, on the bottom tier, you have properties with scores of 1 to 175. These are the poorest land relatively. They're entitled to little or no protection. They're presumed to be buildable. Our ZBA's found score of 81 fell within the bottom half of the lower tier on the LISA system. But there's a middle tier in the state LISA system for scores 176 to 225. It's not the best land. It's not the worst. It isn't entitled to the highest protection, but it's entitled to some. There's no presumption that land in the 176 to 225 range is buildable. And of course, the 192.3 score that we now know is what applies to this property falls squarely within this range. The state guidelines say about this mid-range where the 192.3 score falls, quote, those alternatives receiving 176 to 225 points are in the moderate range for protection. There is no presumption that lands in this range are buildable. A score of 192.3 puts the project in the middle tier, which protects lands with moderate quality. My third point, the zoning administrators also told the board that the Lee County Board has previously determined that the harvesting of solar energy is compatible with Ag 1 districts. But Ordinance 10-15-20, paragraph M, says the opposite. It says, and I quote, the LISA system will not prevent the siting of an SES within an agricultural zone where it can be determined that the harvesting of solar energy at that location is compatible with agriculture. There's no presumption that all solar farms are compatible with agricultural use. The ordinance requires a determination of whether the proposed SES is compatible with agricultural use. We have to look at things like the size, the location, and many other factors. So where does this leave us? We know now that the LISA score is 192.3, not the 81 points that the ZBA found. It puts this property firmly in the middle tier. It is entitled to moderate protection under the Illinois standard. There's no presumption that it should be built upon. The ZBA error is not unimportant. 111 point spread on the 300 point scale is big. I think we should be enforcing our own ordinances, and they're uniquely relevant to this question of the LISA score. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
On your desk was distributed a comment on land evaluation site assessment summary by our zoning administrator. If you read that through, you will see that the LISA score really has been approved to come with this as part of our plan. Read through that. You want to comment on this? Any other discussion? Okay, then we'll
I guess it's a question, but I really don't know who to direct it to. It's my understanding that there is a property in here that failed the LISA score. Can anybody verify that or confirm it one way or the other?
Out of all the LISA scores that were done on the individual property, only one was above the 225, and it scored a 226. But as a whole, if you take the total average of all the properties, it still falls below the 225 as a whole.
That answer your question. It does. I think we need to Is there any other discussion? We need to call for the vote. Take roll call.
Hudson.
Yes.
Humphrey,
No.
Kitson,
Yes.
Copine,
Yes.
McLean,
Yes.
Minimi,
Yes.
Naylor. Yes. Norberg,
Yes.
Palin,
Yes.
Shippert,
No.
Scrogstead,
Yes.
White. Yes. Williams,
Yes.
Wilson,
Stain?
Zeman,
No.
Valley,
Yes.
Considine,
No.
Barster,
No.
Horseman,
No,
Nicholson.
Yes. Leave Miss Allen.
Okay. She does not.
Yes. Yes.
Excuse me, then Ellen,
No.
okay, we have 13 yes, 7 no.
Motion passes. Going on to petition 21P 1581, Nutrient Ag Solutions. PIN number is here in your agenda in Alto Township. Petitioner desires to special use for the purpose of farm product processing, packaging, and distribution. This was recommended by the zoning board 5-0.
Mr. Vice Chair, can we take like a 2-minute break to let people get out of here so before we proceed?
I've got my phone on mute. I can feel it vibrate. Let me know.
Okay, can everybody hear me now? Sorry, I can hear just fine up here. I was unaware of the noise it would make. Okay, let's go on. I read the petition 21P 1581 on Nutrient Ag Solutions, pins there in the agenda. On the Alto Township petitioner desires a special use for purpose of farm product processing, packaging, and distribution. Was recommended by our ZBA 5-0. I need a motion to approve that. Mr. Hudson, second by Mr. Copine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? third petition from the zoning board is petition 21P 1582. Petitioner is Adria Meat Packing Company. Peter Gabo, PIN number is there in your packet. In Willow Creek Township, petitioner is requesting a special use in Ag 1 Agricultural District for the purpose of developing an animal slaughtering facility and holding pens. This came from our zoning board, not recommended, 0 to 5. Need a motion to approve or not approve it. Mr. Kitson, second by Mr. Williams. Any discussion? To approve or not approve? Either up or down. You either voted up or down. Okay.
It should come to the board.
To approve what the ZBA said, Mr.
Yes.
Vice Chair, so it would be to not allow it.
So not allowed. Okay. So we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say.
Whoa. What is the
Let's have a
motion?
roll call vote. Yes or
No. What is the motion? Is it to
The motion
approve this?
is the motion is to go along with the ZBA and a motion to not approve.
It should come to the board as an approval. It's, so, no, it should say,
Okay.
it should be a motion to
the permit.
approve
Yes,
the meat packing.
motion to approve the meat pack. Okay. We have a motion, we have a second.
So now to be clear, a no vote means it doesn't.
A no, yeah, no. vote
Follows
means
what the
it doesn't
ZBA
pass.
said. Is everybody good with that?
Controversial, let's have a roll call on it.
No vote follows what the ZBA said.
Yep.
Humphrey. Kitson,
No.
Copine,
No.
McLean. Minimi,
No.
Naylor,
No.
Norberg,
No.
Palin,
No.
Shippert. No. Scroggstead,
No.
White. No. Williams,
No.
Wilson.
No.
Zeman,
No.
Allen,
No.
Valley,
No.
Considine,
No.
Barster,
No.
Horstman,
No,
Hudson,
No.
Nicholson.
No.
Twenty noes.
2020 no's, motion is not passed. Now we have petitions coming to the planning commission. Petition 21 BC 65, petitioner is Lee County. County desires to amend Title 10 of the zoning regulations of the Lee County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 9, use and bulk regulations under regulations in the county, Lee County Code of Ordinances. Section 10-9-1, principal, special, temporary, restricted usage to allow the use of mini warehouse as a special use in the 3 commercial districts, C1, neighborhood office and business, C2, planned office and business, and C3, general business. I need a motion to send that to the planning commission. Mr. Kitson, second by Mr. Norberg. All in favor, say aye. Aye. No petitions coming from the planning commission. There's no administrator report, am I correct? Mr. Patterson? And board member comments. No board member comments, but we do have some comments from the public. We have a Tom Kaplan. Come up, and if you're going to speak, come up and state your name if you haven't already left. Okay. Then we have a Terry Vortic. Sorry if I butchered the name. Would you like to speak, miss? Push you go to the speaker. Yeah, can you step up to the mic just for a second, say that?
My name is Terry Boydick. I reside at 390 Erickson Gate, Lee, Illinois. I just want to give the entire board for taking the time to read the file and to take the recommendation of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We love our town and it means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss. Now we'll get on to reports from committees. Ad Services, Mr. Norbert.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. One thing that I want to highlight is we're kicking over the salaries for elected officials to finance the admin. We're not equipped to do that with the finance. We have some data and information collected, so we'll pass that on. And coming out of a committee, we elected not to recommend a pay raise for county board members or chairman, vice chairman, anything like that. So you'll see that next month of an actual resolution, I believe, is what will be coming. So otherwise, the minutes are in the packet, and thank you.
For Blackhawk Hills Regional Council, we did have a meeting last Monday, and Mr. Shaw was in the other room. I thought he was going to be giving the synopsis of the meeting. We basically paid the bills and discussed the various things going on. I'm sorry, I didn't bring my minutes with me. But as I say, I thought Mr. Shaw would be reading them. So under finance, Mr. Sheeline is not here. Did he designate you, Arlen?
Really, everything's pretty much included in the minutes, nothing too controversial. We spent a lot of time talking about finance, which is our job, I guess, figure out what to do, and really no conclusions. It's still to be continued. Are there any questions?
Questions for Mr. For Arlen? Thank you. The Health Department, Ms. White.
Hi, thank you, Vice Chairman. We met on November 23rd, the Board of Health. Fortunately, I don't have some amazing news. So over the last 3 weeks, we've had approximately 600 new cases of COVID. Currently within Lee County, there are 24 residents hospitalized. You guys should all be getting this information too from the county, the Board of Health, sorry. The majority of all cases are those who are unvaccinated. All hospitals in our region, including KSB, are at capacity. So we're experiencing severe staffing shortages. You know, within the Board of Health and Lee County Health Department, we just ask that you please still wear your mask, get vaccinated if you can, stay at home if you're sick. If you do feel sick, please get tested. Boosters and vaccines are still available at Lee County Health Department, so please call them. There's local pharmacies that have those as well. You can call them anytime. They're very accommodating. We all see Omicron, so that's a variant right now. It's very aggressive. It's more contagious, but not less deathly. So it's a double-edged sword there. So please still get your boosters. And that's all I have in regards to news about the health department. As you know, we're still fighting COVID. So that's the main focus, and that's where we tend to stay.
Important issue. Any questions for Ms. White?
Thank you.
Thank you. 1-1 board, Mr. Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. In addition to report already submitted by Director Dallas, some additional information provided is that the fiscal year budget passed at the November ETSD meeting, and the highlights were the role of flex publicity, public safety software migration occurred first 2 weeks in December, and they are still working through some bumps in the road, but overall things went fairly smooth. The new telecommunicator hiree, which tentative start date is January 18th, and the next ETSD meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, January 26th at 5:30 p.m. at the Lee County ECC. So, thank you.
Thank Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Hudson? Under properties, planning and zoning, we met last Tuesday at 9 o'clock. Covered the zoning petitions as we've just all gone through. Under old business, we covered the approval of the old LEC repurposing drawings and costs, storage for maintenance and EMA update. Mr. Ryerson gave a update on the audio visual for this room and the third floor meeting room. Passed memorandum of understanding. Under new business, we covered some bids, approval of the old courthouse HVAC. Updating special use application process was done. There was a request for a 6-month moratorium on new wind and solar. That failed 2 to 3 through committee. Will be handled later on the agenda. And then we also did approve 4 to 1 the extending the battery storage moratorium. If anybody has any questions for me, I'll try to answer them. Thank you. Public safety, Mr. Pepin.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Public Safety met December 15th. Comments from the visitors were taken. They are recorded in the minutes. Claims were reviewed and approved for payment and sent forward. I'm not going to read through all of the information that's here because we're talking about 2.5 pages. It'd take me all night to read it. So if you want to read it, if you have any questions, there's one that I would comment, not to be above anybody else, but I'll let the sheriff, excuse me, I'll let the sheriff comment on that because it is in the agenda for our meeting tonight. So if anybody has any questions, please ask me and I'll get the answers for you. That's all I have. We adjourned at about 10:31.
Any questions for Mr. Pepin? Thank you. Transportation solid waste, Mr. Parsons.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Solid Waste Committee, Transportation Solid Waste, we met on Monday, December 13th, 8 a.m. in the Amboy, the office. You all have the minutes in front of you. I'd like to have, see the figures. Need to have a motion on the claims.
Motion to pay claims for solid waste transportation, Mr. Green. Second, Mr. Phelan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
That was pretty much it. We have the HMA coming up. Everything else is pretty much there. The only thing that I did see in the report was currently they charge us $6 to dispose of a deer carcass out to landfill. They want to go to, I believe it's 25. So that's a substantial increase. Why? You ever got a lot of that? Yeah, just that, but that's a substantial increase. Quite sure why. Anyway, if there are any other questions or concerns, I'd be glad to try to answer.
Any questions for Mr. Forster? Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Tri-County Opportunities, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Tri-County Opportunity Council Board met on November 30th by Zoom. And we still have positions open for food service supervisors and food service workers in Dixon. And we need some people in Paw. And we addressed the salaries of the employees. And everyone should have a copy of my report on their desk. If they have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer it. Otherwise, that's my report for tonight.
Questions for Mr. Williams? Thank you. Tourism, Mr. Phelan.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Don't have much to report. We did not meet in December. The flyer on your desk, the back of it is 6 nice wishes for you for the new year. And our October share of the motel tax was $9,477.93. This concludes my report.
Questions for Mr. Palin? Thank you, Bill. UCCI, Mr. Forrester.
There's no report for this month for UCCO.
Under executive and claims, minutes are in your packet. Anybody have any questions on the minutes? Do you need a motion for claims? Mr. Kitson? Got a second? Mr. Palin? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Need a motion to pay county officer or approve county officers' reports request for positive fund in order to pay in vacation. Ms. Shippert, second by Mr. Queen. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Under old business. Nancy, would you like to give a report on the update for election equipment?
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'd like to give the county an update. The new election equipment is in the building. We will not start training on the new equipment until approximately April. The new election is the end of June. So your petitions are going to be going out January 13th. And you'll see in your packet, there is a resolution for county board districts and your polling locations. So that's coming up real fast, less than 4 weeks, you'll be pulling your petitions. That's all I have.
Any questions for Ms. Peterson on the new equipment? Under new business, the LPA agreement for federal participation. Need to. Ryerson, would you like to make a comment on that? Explanation? Thank you.
I would love to make a comment, John, but I know nothing about it. I'm going to defer over here to the Chair of Transportation. Doug, would you like to make a comment?
What exactly was your question again?
LPA agreement for federal participation for Franklin Grove Road. That comes out of transportation solid waste.
Right. Yeah, it's whenever you have federal money out there has to be, basically it's what it says it is. It's just an agreement.
Right. Dave's not here to explain it.
No, he isn't. Of course, he said next month we're going to pass the others. So when he was here, it's going.
But we need a motion to prove that. Got a motion? Mr. Norberg, second by Ms. White. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And then we have the appropriation resolution for Franklin Grove Road. Need a motion to approve that. Move. Considine, second by Mr. Forster. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
On your packet, there's a resolution establishing the claims committee. I believe this was explained virtually to every committee by Ms. Ryerson through the course of the last week. I need a motion to pass that resolution. Mr. Hudson, second by Ms. Naylor. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 And there's another resolution in your packet that at this point, it appoints the claims committee appointments for the claims committee. I need a motion to pass that. Ms. Forster, Mr. Forster, second by Ms. Naylor. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
There is, in your packet, there's a large number of sheets. I hope everybody's had a chance to read them regarding some changes in board rules and procedure revisions.
Yeah, I was just going to say, John, I will address that one. So we literally just passed the updated board rules and procedures in November. The reason we're coming back behind so quickly is that we're adding all of the information regarding the claims committee, just making sure that anything having to do with the claims committee is noted in your board rules. So that's essentially all we were doing by the updates this month.
Need a motion to pass that? Taylor, second by Mr. Scroggstead. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Next thing is a change in calendar dates. Revised meeting date calendar that was sent to all of you. There has been one change, and Wendy, do you have that?
Yes, so on your desks, Becky did lay the revised calendar. We did have to, in the transition of going from the current claims process to the claims committee, we've got some training coming up and there's some transitionary dates we've got. So the claims committee was originally supposed to meet January 5th. It's now going to be January 13th. Because we're working around some training and again, the transition period. So literally the only thing that's changing on these updated dates is once again, to account for the claims committee and the meeting dates that they will have throughout the course of next year.
Thank you very much. Need a motion to pass that. Ms. Shibbert, second by Mr. Valley. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Second would be an approval of fiscal year 23 budget schedule. Now, this is something we have not done before, but we wanted to incorporate this so that we could save on advertising costs. If we print it now, we won't have to pay and publish it separately in the fall. So we need a motion to pass that. Mr. Kitson, second by Ms. Naylor. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Properties, we discussed the fact that we have got the drawings by Wendler and Associates to discuss the stability and the structural stability of the old LEC. Now we need to go back to Wendler and get some costs for drawings that we can actually work from to get bids. And so we are asking for $29,900, go to Naylor or to go to Wendler, and I need a motion to approve that. Mr. Valley, second by Mr. Cobain. Any discussion on any of that? We hope to have that done within a couple months. It's going to be a drawn out process. There's no discussion. All in favor, say Mr. Forster.
Now, just clarify something. Did you say during one of our committee meetings that you believe the amount would be closer to 15,000?
I did. That I feel is correct, but we wanted to make sure we had enough money to do the drawings appropriately, but I feel they'll only come to about 15,000. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so we have motion in a second. Mr. Considine, you have discussion?
Mr. Vice Chair, if it's only projected at 15,000, why are we putting it at 29,900?
So we have enough to cover half the school over. Mr. Wilson, if you had,
50%.
Mr. Wilson,
$30,000.
I'll put you on the spot.
So we're gonna try to get working drawings so we can get bid packets put together so we can put this out for bid to repurpose the jail. The 29,900 is what it would cost to have mechanical, electrical, all the HVAC drawings, the structural drawings we're gonna have done for the work that we're gonna do, electrical drawings. But we're gonna try to do a lot of that stuff in-house and save money. So we're trying to be very conscientious of how much money we're saving, which at this point, it's 29,900, and we're hoping it'll be $15,000. So
There's a lot to be considered there. Anyway, we have a motion in a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Three. Mr. Considine, Mr. Forrester, Mr. Norbert. Voted no. Now we have the MOU between Lee County and Lots. And this is a housekeeping thing. Ms. Ryerson, would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so we originally had an MOU for reimbursement of lots to Lee County for services provided. We had two of them, one for the services that the county treasurer's office provides, and then one for maintenance. Earlier this year, through the finance budgeting process, we also added the insurance costs. Lots will now reimburse us for insurance costs for the building and vehicles out there. And so rather than create yet another third MOU, I ended up just consolidating all of these into one single MOU. So yes, kind of a housekeeping, but also kind of adding for the insurance costs.
Everyone understand what we're doing there? Need a motion to do that. Mr. Kitson, second by Mr. Valley. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Then a K, resolution for moratorium of solar energy systems. Need a motion to, well, Mr. Norbert, would you like to discuss that
I'll make a motion to approve the moratorium first, then we can discuss.
on the solar?
I would like to make a motion to approve the moratorium on solar energy systems.
We have a second from Ms. White. Discussion?
Yeah, so this came out of Renewable Energy Committee. We had talked anywhere between a 3-month, and Ms. Schiffer made the comment that government moves a little bit slower. I'm sure we all agree to that. So I've told everybody I make my commitment to get this done in 3 months. It may be 4, it may be 6. We had a very contentious vote tonight. Let's just call it spade a spade. And I believe that we just need to take a little bit of a break and look at it. I think this is the correct way of going about this. I don't think that we're going to miss anything, and we need to look at this again, because this was way too close in my opinion. So, and I think an opinion of the Renewable Energy Committee.
The other, Mr. Kitson?
Sitting on that same committee, the vote was 3-2 to bring it into moratorium. However, it was pointed out by by D. Duffy that the new ordinance that we spent all the time working on has not yet had anybody apply to it. And I noticed in the news media, the Park District originally was going to try and race in here and apply before we went into moratorium. I'm just concerned what we're doing. When we passed that last ordinance, we said it would be a living document. We continue to work on it. We continue to make changes. And we're already looking at that for solar on your home or your buildings. I just have concerns of what we are going to lose by doing this.
The Park District has already, that project is not going to be moved forward.
I know that, but it just one that showed up that was a concern.
Right.
Humphrey?
I've got concerns that we can't add our Lisa score up properly, so I'm in favor of putting this moratorium in place.
Anybody else? Mr. Williams?
Is this moratorium will it be a 3-month or a 6 month?
On the agenda for 6 months.
Marvin, did you hear that? The current resolution is for 6 months.
Yes.
That's what's on the table right now for consideration is 6 months.
I would like to know why I think it's going to take that long.
Mr. Norbert can answer that question.
I believe that the Renewable Energy Committee came together and thought that this is how long it's going to take. So if you want to be part of the Renewable Energy Committee, you're more than happy to come and join in the conversation and discussion. So
I just want to know why it's going to take that long. That was my question.
I think the Renewable Energy Committee looked at it, and after further discussion, we initially started at 3 months.
That's all you had to tell me. You didn't have to go into any more.
Okay, Ms. Shipper.
Mr. Norbert correctly quoted me that I said government moves slow.
Any other discussion? Mr. McLean?
Roll call.
Okay, we aren't quite done with discussion yet. A lot A lot of people with their hands up. Mr. Considine.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Are we going to address in this moratorium our comprehensive plan and how we support wind and solar? Can we include that in there so that way we can update our comprehensive plan? So when we have these votes,
That's up to, yeah, Mr.
So-
Norberg's the chair of our.
Mr.
renewable-
Considine, that is my goal. I think by doing it, we know that Allison D, we know we have to look at it. We have a brand new planning committee that they do need to look at it and they need time to look at it. So that way we can do it correctly. This allows us to do this correctly. And that is all that we're trying to do.
Mr. McLean.
Two questions. What would be a general summary you're trying to gain? Because we spent 2 or 3 years on rules already. And what happens, second question is what happens if we have Amazon come in and want to do something with it, we haven't got our work done?
Those are always the risks that you take. Right now, the office is only aware of a couple smaller community projects that are still waiting to come in potentially based off the bid process down at the state of Illinois. So once again, I don't believe it affects us in the 3-month time period that my goal is to get this done. To the point of there's already 2 meetings in January set for Renewable Energy Committee. And the reason why there's not any more is because of the holidays here the upcoming weekend.
Just for clarification, we've had,
Very obvious from the people here tonight that there's strong feelings on both sides of it. I just don't know how you hope to resolve that without having professional help someplace else.
clarification, we've had 3 community solar companies petition today.
Perfect.
Today, we've had 3 community solars petition. Prior to the vote tonight.
Mr. Considine.
on May 5th, they called into a planning commission meeting and talked to the chair and everyone on that meeting. And at that point in time, they said in the open meeting that our comprehensive plan does not address solar or wind. So if we're going to do that in this committee, that is something that we need to do. It hasn't been addressed since 2000. So it hasn't been open. So we need to do it. And it's going to take time because in order to open the comprehensive plan, you have to have public hearings and get public insight. So if that's what we're going to put a moratorium on and address, it's long overdue.
Cinco.
Yes, the planning commission is gearing up to address the comprehensive plan starting in January. We have consulted with a Vandewally who had worked with us previously to develop our current comprehensive plan. So we are going to be taking the comprehensive plan section by section and going through to determine what changes need to be made. And our current comprehensive plan does address renewables, but very minimally. So that is something we would like to expand on through this process.
Johnson.
If it's very minimally addressed in our comprehensive plan, then why was the score on the lease of this last project we just voted on given 0 points instead of 15 points or 10 points rather than none at all?
So back in 2017, the planning commission did meet to address solar farms in Lee County. As part of that meeting, here are some of the comments that came out of that meeting. This type of use would discourage rural development, which is consistent with the county's comprehensive plan. Even though this type of use would cover a lot of farmland, the farmer would be able to produce an alternative product while simultaneously allowing the soil to rest. It was agreed that this type of use is consistent with an agricultural use. So depending on how you interpret this, it's kind of where we're at with this discussion. So our office is definitely open to suggestions from the county board about how to proceed. What we have to go on is from 2017. If the county wishes to head in a different direction, we need you guys to give us that direction.
Quick question for you, Alice. This process of reviewing the comprehensive plan was already moving forward before the moratorium came about, right? And so,
Correct.
okay, I thought that was the case.
And the comprehensive plan and the lease are two separate issues. So again, if where our office is open to discuss the lease with anyone that wants to come in, find out how we do our process, that how the office operates was approved by the county board previously. So any scoring that he does is based off of what was designed by the county board. So if changes need to be made, we need that direction from the county board.
Stay there, Alice. Mr. McLean. Mr. McLean.
I was under the impression that a lot of the things already written up are legal. Things we have to do with zoning. Would this be taking place of zoning on things like that or whatever? Because there's heavy protocol. I mean, we have a piece of paper here talking about South Dixon. It's about 60 pages. 55 of them are based on zoning and testimony.
Yeah, Arlen, I'm sorry, I'm not sure that we know what you're asking.
What you were addressing.
Well, we have a zoning thing in place now that usually we try to, they do a lot of research for us. Would this committee take precedence of writing things up that will overrule zoning?
The planning commission and the zoning board of appeals are two separate bodies. So the planning commission meets separately and they are charged with county planning and setting the goals of the county. The zoning board hears petitions through the zoning office.
Based on the zoning ordinances. Any others, Mr. Capeen?
I guess I'm not understanding things totally as far as the Renewable Energy Committee opening things to be looked at again. What are we going to open and what are we going to look at? Help me out on this. And the reason I ask that is because months ago, there was a moratorium requested, but it lost for whatever reason. And the reason brought up was we have a solar ordinance that was in effect at that time. We needed an ordinance in effect at that time, so we decided to vote on that. And ordinance number 1 was approved. Now we're back, and I'm curious, after the first ordinance was approved, it was stated that any changes that needed to be made could always be made by amendment. And I can't recall exactly without going back to the minutes, but I think Mr. Boonstra had basically agreed at that point that if we had to make changes, we could make it by an ordinance amendment.
They absolutely can be made by amendment, but the same problem that happened last time or that just happened today is the exact reason for it. If we're going to go into discussion, we're going to talk about things that may or may not affect the company financially and they don't like it, they can come pull their petition. But if it's what's right for Lee County, and that's what we determine is what's right for Lee County, we have a moratorium in place to make sure that the ordinance is what we want and that they're going to have to abide by. That Duke was a perfect example. They pulled that petition the day that we voted on the new ordinance.
That's not correct. They voted, or they filed their petition in May. They filed an amended petition on the same day that you approved the ordinance.
They filed an amended petition the same day we filed the ordinance. They were by no statute had to follow that. They did, and that's why many of us voted yes today. But if we get the next company in here that doesn't like the direction that we are going and we want to, perfect example is when we come to the solar or the wind I'll discuss that real quick, just to give an example.
Let's take one thing.
Well, there's a radar technology that eliminates the red flashing lights. The radar technology eliminating red flashing lights cost $1 million extra roughly.
Can we take one resolution at a time?
Yeah, go, sorry.
No, throw that out there.
So I think there are things that could financially be detrimental to the solar that a company could come and petition, and we have no force of remorse without a moratorium in place. That's
So
the
are,
reason.
are we changing language in the second solar ordinance?
I believe that's what the Renewable Energy Committee wants to look at.
Speaking as a board member, Mr. Klon, a former state's attorney, wrote up the first ordinance. I think he did a fine job about 2 years ago. It was a committee put together, headed by Dave Bowers, who, as all of you probably recall, he was probably one of the most detailed individuals that ever sat in this boardroom. At least he was to me. There's a number of us that were on that committee. It was written as amendments, and we did tweak the ordinance a little bit, but it was meant to be a living document, as Mr. Kitson and Mr. Copine said. It was meant to be improved by amendments, not by moratorium. I worry by setting a moratorium, we will open up that ordinance and it will turn into just a complete can of worms. I fully believe that we can do what we want by amendments down the road. So I think for more discussion, Mr. Constantine.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I think the moratorium is necessary in order to allow time for the comprehensive plan to be updated in itself. I know they're working on it, but right now our comprehensive plan, the number one goal of it says we will maintain the rural characteristics of this county. And it hasn't been addressed how many acres, where and when, and how much solar we're going to keep accepting. If we just keep taking permits and keep taking applications, then we have to address those in a timely manner. That's our obligation by law. If we put a moratorium on it, they have time to get the comprehensive plan up to date. Mr. Norberg's committee is still going to have to come back here with any amendment that he wants to make. We're going to have to pass it. It gives them an opportunity to look at it. It gives us an opportunity to pause and to go forward. The only thing we don't have to do is then be having the zoning board going by antiquated 2020, 2017, if you will, playbook. We need our playbook updated, and we don't have that with our comprehensive plan being outdated. So if they're going to look at the ordinance, it's going to give us time. I'm in favor of it.
I have asked, well, Mr. Valley, did you want to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Yeah, although I don't like the word moratorium, and I spoke out against that. The committee, we did set up a committee to look into this. They have some issues they want to look into. I have to respect the committee, although it was a split decision even within their committee to do some kind of moratorium, but I will mention that I will not pass any farther than this. To get their job done, I did question that at the committee, and they've already set up for 2 meetings in January rather than the 1 meeting a month or so. So I'm saying the committee to get this done, to get it underway. If there's anybody that wants to come to zoning on something, that please come to the table. We want to talk to them. We want to work with them. This is not going to be an extended moratorium. This is just a bad word that just a time for us to rewrite a few things and then re-vote on what we want to go forward with. Thank you.
As a point of clarification, Mr. Norberg, you're not specific on whether it's a 3-month or 6-month on the agenda. Is it 3-month or 6-month you're asking for?
I came out of committee as a 6-month recommendation, so I recommend my motion is for a 6-month moratorium.
We have a board member who has asked for the vote. We'd like to go with a roll call vote on this.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Kitson,
Yes.
Copine,
Yes.
McLean, Minimi,
No.
Naylor,
Yes.
Norberg,
Yes.
Shippert,
Yes.
Scrogstad,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Williams,
No.
Wilson,
Yes.
Zeman,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Valley,
Yes.
Considine, Farster,
Yes.
Horseman,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Humphrey, Nicholson.
No.
Sixteen yes, 4 no.
Motion passed to be a solar energy systems moratorium for 6 months. On to L. Moratorium for wind energy systems. Need a motion to pass that. Ms. Shippert. Second by. Mr. Sorry, Mr. Wilson. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now we under M, we have a resolution for extending the battery storage moratorium. They came out of committee and it was for 6 months. I need a motion to pass that. Shibbert, second by Mr. Valley. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Nay. Any other nays? And resolution for the appellate prosecutor fee. Charlie, you want to elaborate on that just briefly?
Thanks. This is a yearly fee that the appellate prosecutor requests of the county for services rendered for conflict cases, for giving out advice to my office in terms of any appeals that may be filed on our behalf and representing us on our behalf for the appeals, as well as any appealable errors that we may be looking for or advice on a multitude of things. You will see that this one is for $14,000. Last year it was $15,000, which was up, I think, $3,000 from the 2 years beforehand. So they've given us a reduced rate now at $14,000. This is in my budget for the general budget, and it's just a standard fee that we do every year.
Need a motion to approve that. Mr. Kitson, second by Ms. Naylor. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Under the salamander device for the EMA, Mr. Lally is not here tonight. I was hoping he would be to explain it, but what it involves is a device that they would be able to track virtually all individuals at a crisis, at a disaster. And Ms. Ryerson, you know a little more about that? Or Mr. Brown?
I think you've kind of covered it. So there's a little confusion here. Originally, Kevin put this in the capital budget. During budget hearings, the finance committee recommended he go to the ARPA committee and request funding. It did not come out of our ARPA committee as a top 5 priority. So ARPA committee essentially sent him back to his committee last month. And the only reason the board didn't vote on it last month was because it didn't make it on finance's agenda. So it did go through that proper process this month. And finance did approve the expenditure going forward, and he just needs full board approval.
The amount would be in your pack. I'm sorry, Mr. Kitson.
Mr. Vice Chairman, just a little addition to that. He's had that in his budget previously. I think we've had it either 2 or 3 years. It came about after the tornado and sublet. And it allows them to know that people are on the site. It checks them in, checks them out, so we don't have people lost. And it's something we've already had. It's just, as Wendy said, it's lost.
Looking for a motion to approve this?
Yes.
Because it wasn't budgeted, it wasn't approved with part of your budget process. So we're kind of going outside the budget process here.
Sorry, I'm trying to dig up the amount. call the amount. Okay, so I need a motion to approve that. Mr. Kitson, second by Mr. Mamini. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the American Rescue Plan Act Committee, about 2 weeks ago approved next picture show funding request. That went through finance. So approved. And it was approved. So we just need a motion to do that. Okay, got a second on that, Mr. Bean? Any discussion on it? It's following our procedures that we lined out. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And the approval of the health insurance consultant. Motion to approve it. Second. Shiver. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Under sickage, Ms. Ryerson, would you like to elaborate on this briefly?
So over the last few years, we've had a services agreement with Sickich to provide HR services. Part of the executive committee's strategic plan when they hired administrator was to reduce the expenditure that we had been putting at or towards Sickich. So the executive committee strategic planning a few weeks ago made a decision to change or modify the scope of that agreement so that going forward, the Sickich will be available on a very limited basis to either the county board chairman or the county administrator. Whereas in the past, that's been open to any department head and sometimes employees were contacting them. So the idea is that we're phasing down and out the Sickich services agreement, but for at least the next year, we're looking for approval of, again, a limited scope agreement with Sickich for HR services.
Make a motion to approve it.
Second on that. Mr. Kitson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The approval of the old courthouse HVAC bid that came in from Hartwig for $299,900. It was the lowest of 3 bids. They're actually doing a little more than the other 2 were doing. So need a motion to approve that. Mr. Valley, second by Mr. Wilson. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? We need a resolution for the decennial reapportionment of county board districts. Peterson, would you like to talk to that?
It's in your packet there. It's just the adjustments that were made for precinct boundaries. If there's any questions.
So Nancy, just a quick heads up here. I think the first one that John called out has to do with the county board districts, and the precinct boundaries will be the next one up on the list. And so Nancy's been telling you for a while now that the county, and last month in particular, she reported the county board districts are not changing. However, you need to ratify the existing districts going forward for the next 10 years because of the census information. So essentially what you're doing is ratifying the original districts because we're not changing them. You're also ratifying that we are going down as of the next election down to 20 board members, 4 districts, 5 members per district.
Anybody have any questions on that? The motion to approve that. Shiver, second by Mr. Forrester. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And then, as Winnie said, the second one is the adjustment of precinct boundaries established. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay, Mr. Kitson made the motion to approve that. Second by Ms. Naylor? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? B is the resolution supporting the proposed law enforcement academy at Sauk Valley Community College. Sheriff, would you like to speak to that for a minute?
Thank you and good evening. We have an opportunity here, a unique opportunity to support proposed academy at Sauk Valley Community College. They've been in discussion with the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board recently to find out what it takes to be certified as a law enforcement academy. It's a unique position for us and for other law enforcement agencies, not only in Sauk Valley area, but also some bigger agencies in the Quad Cities and Rockford as well. We don't have a law enforcement academy any closer, about an hour and a half from us now. And as I've told the Public Safety Committee the last several months, it's been very difficult for any of us to get slots in the academy. They're currently filled. And part of the reason they're filled, two reasons actually, there's been a lot of retirements lately. And I know that's no surprise, considering what's going on with police reform in our nation, not just our state. But also because of the COVID restrictions, they're only having about half of their normal size academy classes, and there are no overlapping classes either. So to have something like this in the northwest part of the state is extremely advantageous to all law enforcement cadets, new applicants, and agencies that are waiting to get those people certified. It'll save us, specifically Lee County, Dixon, and other areas that are close, a lot of travel time and lodging as well. So it'll be certainly see some cost savings generated from this. And down the road, I do believe that there are many work with many good law enforcement officers, deputies, and troopers in this area that may from time to time also be able to teach at the academy. So for a lot of good reasons, I ask that you take a look at this resolution tonight and vote in support of that. I had an opportunity also to talk to the mayor tonight briefly, and although they have not entertained that at their council meeting, I believe they're going to in the near future, and I believe there's some keen interest in this as well from the city. Questions?
Any questions to the sheriff? I think this will be a good thing. It's great for Lee County and Sauk Valley area. Not only ease some of their financial burden in getting people certified, but it will just be good for everybody around the area. So, need a motion to approve this. I'll show support. Mr. Scrogstead, second by Ms. Naylor. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Under the ARPA staff compensation, when we first started with the ARPA committee, it was really an unknown as to how much work it would be involved. Sarah Leisner was appointed to head that committee, with Patty Rodolphe as the second on that. Hardly a day goes by, they don't have some changes, what they have to do and how much they have to study and how they line things out. We've had, I believe, 3 ARPA committee meetings here, but we decided that we would be able to raise the compensation, which is very well deserved. It would be $20,000 for Ms. Leisner, $12,000 for Ms. Rodolphe. And then we included Mr. Rodolphe sitting here as another one because in the treasurer's office, he has been the go-to person for the ARPA money and funneling it through. This can all be charged back to the ARPA funds. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right, not coming out of our budget at all, but we need to approve it. So I'd like to entertain a motion to give these raises. Copine, second by Mr. Forster. Any discussion?
I believe there was part of that, part of Wendy's salary was going to be offset.
Hang on a minute, we'll get to that.
Okay.
Okay. Discussion, Ms. Shipper?
Just a point of clarification. Is this in addition for Sarah and Patty, in addition to what we approved before, or this is the total?
This is the total.
Okay, thank you.
I do also want to clarify that the recommendation was that, this be handled essentially like a stipend in that when the ARPA duties, are no longer there, that this will also go away, in case that was a concern of anyone.
Mr. Norbert?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe this was essentially setting their stipend for next year. Is that correct? Isn't that how it came out? It's not. It's, they got, I believe Sarah got $10,000 up to this point. This would take her essentially from December 1 to December 1 of next year at 20,000. Is that how it came out? That's how my understanding was. So I just want to clarify that for Ms. Shipper.
There's no retro there at all.
I don't honestly recall, guys. I would be in favor of retro because there's been a lot of time already put in on this, but I don't recall that the recommendation clarified that.
If we did go retro, where would we go? How far back will we go, Wendy?
I would go back to the date that she first took on, that they just first took on the responsibility. So the date of the resolution appointing them.
Then how long does this, you know, I mean, Mr. Norberg had a fiscal year that this amount would pertain to, which makes sense.
Money has to be dispersed by 2025. I don't recall the month.
So I believe the conversation, at least that took place at the executive committee strategic planning, was that this would be analyzed on an annual basis, because as we get towards the end of the ARPA money distribution, the workload probably will drop off. To be honest, the workload in this first year has been huge because of the learning curve. And as John already mentioned, a lot of the changes that are taking place constantly. So there's already been a significant amount of time put into it. And that's why I was thinking, in my opinion, it was going back to the first date of that resolution. To answer your question, Marilyn, we would look at it, I would assume, on an annual basis. So the stipend would be $20,000 annually. We'd prorate it for the date of the resolution approval through the end of the year. And then, of course, for the December 1, this fiscal year, December 1, 2021 through the next fiscal year, and then again, reanalyze it.
I don't recall anything about an annual stipend. It was just an amount. There's no date or time set on this. To me, it was told it was 20,000 for as long as this committee was put together.
20,000 gross, Rick? Is that what you interpreted? So just
It went from a $10,000 stipend to a $20,000 stipend, and there was no discussion on an annual basis. That's what I recall.
So was there, in your mind, Rick, a term for that 20,000 then, or a period of time, or I'm not following what you're saying?
The spans was the way it was, I guess, presented.
Mr. Norbert.
But Bishop.
I have no problem with the compensation for these people because I know they're putting in a tremendous amount of work. We just need to clarify, you know, what time period this is, and, you know, if there's more, if there's, you know, this time period needs to be specified.
I agree. This came out of executive. And we have a motion on the floor to approve it, but Mr. Humphrey brings up a good point. And yeah, Mr. Norbert, did you have a comment?
Yeah. What about a recommendation, and I'm not saying it, but what if we table it and come back with the exact details out of executive or out of the ARPA, so that way we can have some clarification on that. But to your point, I think
I have to agree on
Make a
that.
motion to table it.
Second.
Got a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Come back next month. Thank you. Sorry about that. Now, we do have another motion on the table. That probably would go the same way with your reimbursement.
Yeah, so the other recommendation that came out of the strategic planning committee and I believe, yes, out of finance, it's here in the minutes, was a $10,000 reimbursement from the ARPA fund to offset the my salary right now as county administrator for the time that I'm spending. I want to be clear, that's not additional money. That is just offsetting my salary, but basically ARPA reimbursing county general.
And we just need a motion to table that till we can discuss that at executive. To get that lined up for next month. Make the motion, Mr. Norbert.
I'll make that motion.
Have a second on it, Ms. Naylor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
What motion did we table? We just tabled, it's part of the ARPA staff compensation, but we covered it under a separate motion. Only because the staff is different than Wendy. And I have to say that after being part of the ARPA committee, that it's very hard to realize the amount of work that goes into getting this all together. And then once it's all together, getting the requests analyzed and brought before the committee.
Right, but we did that with the last motion, the ARPA staff compensation, so we didn't have another motion.
But she's not really part of the staff. She's our administrator. And the motion was to reimburse part of her wages out of ARPA money, which hasn't been before. So that's why we did. Okay, there's no appointments. Any executive session, Charlie? Okay. Need a motion for mileage and per diem. Mr. Kitson, second by Mr. Copine. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All bills and appropriations allowed by roll call.
Copine,
Yes.
McLean,
Yes.
Minime,
Yes.
Naylor,
Yes.
Norberg,
Yes.
Shippert,
Yes.
Strogstead,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Williams,
What are we voting on? I couldn't hear you. Bills and appropriations, Marvin. Oh, excuse me. Okay, yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Valley,
Yes.
Considine. Barster, Horstman,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Humphrey, Kitson,
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes. Before we adjourn, I do want to thank all of you for your patience. It's been a long meeting, full agenda. I want to thank Mr. Ryerson and Mr. Boonster for their guidance through this meeting and some of the petitions. I can need a motion to adjourn. Copine, Mr. Kitson, thank you all.